On December 31st, 1984, as the world prepared to welcome a new year, Rick Allen's life took a terrifying turn. Rick was just 21 years old, the drummer for one of the biggest rock bands in the world, Def Leppard. The band was riding high after the success of their album, Pyromania, which had turned them into global stars. Life was fast, fun, and full of music, but none of them were ready for what was about to happen. That day, Rick was driving his black Corvette Stingray in the English countryside. He loved cars and speed, but while trying to pass another vehicle on a narrow road, he lost control. His car hit a stone wall and flipped over. The seatbelt, which had not been properly fastened, sliced through his left arm, severing it completely. Paramedics rushed to the scene. Rick was bleeding badly. Doctors tried to reattach the arm but failed. He had lost it forever. Most people assumed Rick's career was over. How could a rock drummer continue with only one arm? His bandmates were devastated. Fans feared the worst. For a while, Rick himself wasn't sure he could go on. But deep down, something inside him said, "Don't give up." This wasn't the end of Rick Allen. In fact, it was just the beginning of a new chapter, one that would inspire millions around the world. The will to play again. After the crash, Rick Allen spent weeks in the hospital. He was weak, in pain, and facing the reality that his arm was gone. But what hurt most wasn't the physical injury. It was the thought of losing the drums. Drumming wasn't just Rick's job. It was his passion, his identity, and his connection to the world. When his bandmates came to visit him, Rick was quiet at first, but soon he shocked them with a bold idea. "I think I can still play." They didn't laugh. They didn't doubt. They supported him. Def Leppard wasn't just a band, it was a brotherhood. Rick began working with engineers to create something revolutionary. A custom electronic drum kit that he could play using his right arm and both feet. The kit included foot pedals that could trigger snare, toms, cymbals, everything a two-handed drummer would use. Learning to use this new setup was hard. Rick had to completely retrain his body. At times, he broke down in frustration, but he never quit. Slowly, painfully, he got better. Meanwhile, Def Leppard was writing songs for their next album. They waited for Rick. They refused to replace him. And then, just over a year after the accident, Rick stepped on stage again. It was August 1986 at the Donington Monsters of Rock Festival. Thousands of fans watched in awe as the one-armed drummer played like nothing had ever changed. They screamed, they cried, they cheered for a man who refused to give up on his dream. Hysteria is born. With Rick back behind the drums, Def Leppard went into the studio to finish their next album. It was their biggest and most ambitious project yet. They called it Hysteria, a title that reflected the chaos and pressure they had faced. The album took over 3 years to make, but what came out of it was nothing short of magic. Hysteria wasn't just a rock album. It was a masterpiece. Produced by Mutt Lange, it featured layer upon layer of guitar, drums, and vocals, and right at the heart of it was Rick Allen, playing drums with one arm and total heart. The lead single, Animal, was an instant hit, but it was the fourth single, Pour Some Sugar on Me, that became a global anthem. With its unforgettable beat and chorus, it topped the charts in country after country. Def Leppard had done the impossible. They had turned tragedy into triumph. Rick Allen had turned his condition into strength. The album sold over 20 million copies worldwide. It went multi-platinum in the US, UK, and many other countries. People couldn't stop talking about it, and behind it all was a drummer who had every reason to quit but chose to rise, becoming a symbol of hope. By 1988, Rick Allen wasn't just a drummer. He was a symbol. People from all walks of life, musicians, athletes, war veterans, looked at him and saw what was possible. He had faced a life-changing loss and still found his rhythm. Young drummers who had disabilities wrote to him, thanking him. Parents brought their children to concerts just to see the Thunder God in action. Rick had become living proof that you can still shine after the storm. He never asked for sympathy. He never made excuses. Instead, he worked harder than ever. Def Leppard, with Rick in full force, kept touring the world. Every night, Rick's massive custom drum kit would light up arenas. His footwork was so fast, most people forgot he only had one arm. Even critics who once doubted the band now praised Rick's courage and talent. Music magazines ran cover stories about him. TV shows wanted interviews, but Rick stayed humble. He always said, "I'm not a hero, I'm just lucky to still do what I love." But to millions, he was more than lucky. He was legendary. The battles off stage. Even with all the success, Rick's journey wasn't easy. Like many rock stars, he struggled with addiction. The trauma from the crash, the pressure of fame, and years on the road caught up with him. In the 1990s, Rick began drinking heavily. He admitted later that he felt lost. Even with all the cheers and applause, something was missing inside. In 1995, he was arrested for domestic abuse, a moment that shocked his fans. Rick immediately apologized and entered rehab. He said it was the lowest point of his life and a wake-up call. He committed to getting clean, not just for his career, but for his family. Over the years, Rick became deeply involved in healing work. He began practicing meditation, art therapy, and even worked with wounded veterans. Rick knew what it was like to feel broken, but he also knew the power of healing, and he wanted to help others find it. He and his wife Lauren founded the Raven Drum Foundation, a group that helps trauma survivors, especially veterans and first responders. Through music and rhythm, Rick brought hope to people in pain. Once again, he was turning his own struggle into something that could lift others. Still, rocking at 52. By the time Rick turned 52, the world had changed, but one thing stayed the same: his passion for music. In 2015, Def Leppard released a self-titled album that brought them back into the spotlight. They toured with acts like Kiss and Journey. Rick, now more seasoned and grounded than ever, still played every show with energy and joy. His drumming had evolved, just like he had. Fans were amazed that, after 3 decades, he could still hit with the same power and timing. One of the most surprising moments came when their classic hit, Hysteria, returned to the charts. Thanks to digital downloads and a new wave of younger fans discovering their music, the album re-entered top 10 lists around the world. It hit number 1 again in several countries. Suddenly, a song written during a time of fear and struggle was being sung by a new generation. Rick said in interviews, "It feels like a full-circle moment. That album came from pain, but it became a source of joy." At 52, Rick Allen wasn't just a survivor. He was a legend who proved that your biggest challenge can become your greatest gift. A drummer like no other, Rick Allen's drum kit is one of a kind, just like him. While most drummers rely on both arms and feet, Rick had to reinvent everything. His kit includes electronic pads and pedals that he operates with his feet to make up for his missing arm. Each pedal is connected to different drum sounds: snare, hi-hat, toms, cymbals. It took years of practice to master the timing. But Rick never wanted pity, he just wanted to be Tao. He best drummer he could be. What's incredible is how natural it looks when he plays. Watching him, you'd never guess he had only one arm. His technique is so fluid, it's easy to forget how much effort went into it. Other drummers often say, "I couldn't do what Rick does with 2 arms." But Rick doesn't see himself as special. He often says, "I'm just doing what I love." That attitude has earned him massive respect, not just from fans, but from legends in the industry. Phil Collins once said, "Rick's not just brave, he's brilliant." And he's still evolving. Even in his 50s and beyond, Rick continues to learn, improve, and inspire. A legacy of rhythm and resilience. Rick Allen's story is more than just music. It's about resilience, about refusing to be defined by what you've lost and choosing instead to be remembered for what you give. From a tragic car crash to topping the charts in 10 countries, Rick didn't just survive, he rose. He showed us that even when life throws you into darkness, you can come back stronger. That creativity can be born from pain. That rhythm lives deep inside us, no matter what form we take. Today, Rick continues to tour with Def Leppard, paint, speak, and advocate for trauma survivors. The Raven Drum Foundation helps thousands. His story is taught in music schools and featured in documentaries. And whenever "Pour Some Sugar on Me" or "Hysteria" blasts through the speakers, millions still feel that beat, the beat of a man who wouldn't stop drumming. Rick Allen's legacy isn't just in platinum records or sold-out arenas. It's in every person who chooses to get back up after a fall. It's in every artist who dares to find beauty in their scars. He once thought the crash ended everything, but in truth, it was the moment he became unforgettable.